Esteemed guests, for simultaneous translation, kindly tune into the following channels on your devices. For English, Channel 1, for French, Channel 2, Russian, Channel 3, Spanish, Channel 4, Chinese, Channel 5, Arabic, Channel 6, Hindi, Channel 7, and Portuguese, Channel 8.
أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف الكرام، السيدات والسادة،
Your Excellencies,
في مقاعدكم.
ladies and gentlemen,
على وشك
please remain seated.
تحويل أجهزة
The ceremony is about to start. Put your phones on silent, please. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting shortly. Can we please ask you to also switch your mobile devices to silent? Thank you.
Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, welcome to the opening ceremony of the World Climate Action Summit at COP28. We are pleased to welcome you to the Al Waha Theatre at Expo City, Dubai. Kindly take your seats. أصحاب السمو، أصحاب الجلالة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الضيوف الكرام، مرحباً بكم في حفل افتتاح القمة العالمية للعمل المناخي في كوب 28. يسعدنا أن نرحب بكم في مسرح الواحة بمدينة إكسبو في دبي. يرجى أخذ مقاعدكم. Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Khulud Al-Atiyat, and welcome to the opening ceremony of the World Climate Action Summit at COP28. What you just saw, the drum rhythms of Ar-Ruwah and chants of An-Nadba, are the traditional calls to gather from our Shuhuh tribe of the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah. We have heard the call and united, and now we must act. As we come together for a future of sustainable flourishing, it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة.
Esteemed guests, Your Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations,
الحضور الكريم،
esteemed guests,
السلام عليكم.
peace be upon you all.
أرحب بكم
I welcome you all to the UAE
العربية المتحدة
and to this COP28
وفي مؤتمر كوب 28، وأشكركم على
I also would like to extend my thanks for you attending this summit.
يأتي اجتماعنا اليوم
This meeting comes at a time when the world faces many challenges,
ومن أهمها
the most significant and crucial of which is the climate change and its impact on all aspects of life.
الحضور الكريم.
Ladies and gentlemen,
دولة الإمارات
esteemed guests, the UAE has an established record in climate action.
لقد قمنا على مدى العقود
We have worked over the past decades in order to diversify our economy and build our capabilities in renewable and clean energy sectors. We have set a national pathway to net zero by 2050.
2050 والتزمنا بخفض
The UAE has also been committed to a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030.
واستثمرنا بما يقارب من
To date,
100 مليار
the UAE has invested $100 billion in financing climate action,
مع التركيز على الطاقة
with a main focus on renewable and clean energies.
كما نعتزم
We have also committed
حوالي 130
to invest in approximately
في السنوات.
$130 billion over the next 7 years.
حضورنا الكريم، لقد عندما التزمنا
Esteemed guests, when we committed to hosting COP28,
أيضا
we pledged to bring the world together to unite, work, and deliver.
نعمل وننجز ونعمل على تسريع انتقال العالم إلى النمو الاقتصادي.
We are finding practical ways to accelerate the world's transition to low-emission growth economy.
التموين من أكبر العوائق أمام
The lack of readily available and affordable climate finance has long been one of the biggest obstacles in advancing climate action globally. Therefore, I am pleased to announce the establishment of a $30 billion fund
يسرني الإعلان عن إنشاء صندوق
Once again, I am pleased to announce the establishment of a $30 billion fund for global climate solutions.
والذي تم
This fund
لسد فجوة
is specifically designed to bridge the climate finance gap, ensuring availability and accessibility as well as affordability at scale.
يهدف الصندوق إلى
Its objective is to stimulate the raising and investment of
$52 مليار
$250 billion by 2030.
30. حضور الكريم،
Ladies and gentlemen,
قبل أن أختتم
before I close,
كلمتي اسمحوا لي
I would like to tell you a short story.
قائد آمن بحب الأرض
It's a story about a pioneer that believed in loving nature and his land and preserving its resources.
مع شعبه
A leader that worked hand in hand with his people in order to cultivate this great land.
أن الثروة الحقيقية للدول
He was always aware
في أبنائها
that the true wealth is the people.
وإنجازاتنا اليوم
Our accomplishments stand witness
تقبل أكثر إشراقنا إن شاء الله.
for all that he has set the ground for
السادة
in order to achieve a future
الشيخ زايد طيب الله ثراه
that is brighter than ever. He is the leader, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, founding father of the UAE.
مؤسس الدولة رمز حضارتها
He stands as a symbol of its civilization
وصانع
and a pivotal,
حاضرها
the vital role played by him in order to create and shape the past, present, and future of this land. Thank you.
أصحاب الجلالة وأصحاب السمو والفخامة.
Your Majesties, Your Excellencies,
السلام عليكم
Your Highnesses,
ورحمة الله
esteemed guests, peace be upon you all.
جميعا.
We welcome you all to your
دولة الإمارات
second land,
ونرحب
second
بالوفود كلها.
homeland, the UAE. We welcome all the
مؤتمر المناخ.
delegates that came here for this
الله نشكره
climate conference.
على ما عنده
We praise be to Allah
وحباب
for His blessings.
الأرض.
He gave us this gift of land
نحن بالنسبة لنا في دولة الإمارات
for us in the UAE.
يعتبر موضوع حماية البيئة
Conserving and preserving
شعار
the environment is not a slogan or a logo.
جزء لا يتجزأ.
It's actually part and parcel of who we are as a history, as a culture, and as a legacy.
ولا زلنا
We have been and we will always remain
مبدأ التعاون
committed to the coexistence between nature and the human beings.
عاش آبانا وأجدادنا
Our forefathers have lived on this land and they coexisted with their surrounding, whether in the land or the sea. They acknowledged the importance of preserving this nature, and they took only what is needed for their survival. And they left for the coming generations a source of goodness and abundance. And as such, we who live now on this land of goodness, we are responsible for taking care of our environment and our nature. This is our responsibility. We have to be faithful and loyal to our forefathers and to our coming generations. The coming generations will live in a world that is very different than what we have experienced and what we have become accustomed to. And this is why we have to prepare ourselves and our people and our children for the new world. Preserving the environment and conserving it is our responsibility, not only as people or as groups, but also as governments. The governments should be the ones who take initiatives, and I call upon you and encourage you today that you work for achieving one goal: to work for the coming generations and achieve what's good for their future. I also call upon the entire world to take this opportunity in this meeting in the land of peace and coexistence and tolerance, to forfeit or forsake any feuds or any quarrels and build bridges of love and understanding in order to walk hand in hand together towards the future. We have to build the land. We have to cultivate it. Our destiny is one. We are keen because our interest is one. Our happiness, our joy is one. We all aim to achieve the same goal. Best of luck in achieving this. Peace be upon you all.
The reality is that despite all the effort that's been made here, things are going in the wrong direction.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
There are too many things dividing our world at this moment. We are heading in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough.
Whether it will be enough will define this summit.
Let us now introduce a leader whose stewardship epitomizes the ideals of unity, diplomacy, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. I want to express my profound gratitude for the wonderful hospitality that we are enjoying in Dubai from the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates. COP28 President Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, I want to congratulate you on the positive start of the COP, with an expeditious approval of the agenda and the landmark operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. Congratulations. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, friends, all protocol observed. Just days ago, I was on the melting ice of Antarctica. Not long before, I was among the melting glaciers of Nepal. These two spots are far in distance, but united in crisis. Polar ice and glaciers are vanishing before our eyes, causing a shock the world over, from landslides and floods to rising seas. But this is just one symptom of the sickness bringing our climate to its knees. A sickness only you, global leaders, can cure. Excellencies, Earth's vital signs are failing. Record emissions, ferocious fires, deadly droughts, and the hottest year ever. We can guarantee it even we are still in November. We are miles from the goals of the Paris Agreement and minutes to midnight for the 1.5-degree limit. But it is not too late. We can, you can prevent planetary crash and burn. We have the technologies to avoid the worst of climate chaos if we act now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has charted a clear path to the 1.5-degree world. But we need leadership, cooperation, and political will for action, and we need it now. It's true, our world is unequal and divided. As we see in this region, conflicts are causing immense suffering and intense emotion. We just had the news that the bombs are sounding again in Gaza. And climate chaos is fanning the flames of injustice. Global heating is busting budgets, ballooning food prices, upending energy markets, and feeding a cost of living crisis. But climate action can flip the switch. And renewable energy is the gift that keeps on giving. It's good for our planet, our health, and our economies, cleaning our air, meeting the world's growing energy demand, connecting millions of people to affordable electricity, bringing stability and security to markets, and saving money, as renewable energy has never been cheaper. Excellencies, friends, the diagnosis is clear. The success of the COP depends on the global stocktake prescribing a credible cure in 3 areas. First, drastically cutting emissions. Current policies would lead to an earth-scorching 3-degree temperature rise. So the global stocktake must set clear expectations for economy-wide national determined contributions presented by all countries that cover all greenhouse gases and align with 1.5-degree limit. The G20, which represents 80% of the world's emissions, must lead. And I urge countries to speed up their net zero timelines to get there as close as possible to 2040 in developed countries and 2050 in emerging economies. Second, we cannot save a burning planet via fire hoses of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables. The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees. And the global stocktake must not only commit to that, it must also commit to triple renewables, double energy efficiency, and bring clean energy to all by 2030. The economics are clear. The global shift to renewables is inevitable. The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. At the same time, according to the International Energy Agency, the oil and gas industry accounts for just 1% of clean energy investment. So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old road is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model. Lead the transition to renewables using the resources you have available. Make no mistake, the road to climate sustainability is also the only viable pathway to economic sustainability of your companies in the future. And I urge governments to help industry make the right choice by regulating, legislating, putting a fair price on carbon, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and adopting a windfall tax on profits. Excellencies, third, climate justice is long overdue. Developing countries are being devastated by disasters they did not cause. Extortionate borrowing costs are blocking their climate action plans, and support is far too little, far too late. The global stocktake must commit to a surge in finance, including for adaptation and loss and damage. And it must support reform of the multilateral development banks to leverage far more private finance at reasonable costs for developing countries in climate action. And developed countries must show how they will double adaptation finance to $40 billion a year by 2025, as promised, and clarify how they are delivering on the $100 billion as promised. Excellencies, the climate challenge is not just another issue in your inbox. Protecting our climate is the world's greatest test of leadership. And so I urge you to lead. Humanity's fate hangs in the balance. Make this COP count. Make this COP a game changer. Make this COP the newer hope in the future of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
شكرا لك سعادة الأمين العام. سيداتي وسادتي، لقد حان الوقت الآن لنحول طموحاتنا إلى عمل وأن نشارك المرئيات حول كيفية التقدم أو المضي قدما. رحبوا بأحد مؤيدي المناخ جلالة الملك تشارلز الثالث.
Your Highness, Secretary General, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for his warm invitation to speak to you at the opening of COP28. 8 years ago, I was most touched to be asked to speak at the opening of COP21 in Paris, which of course culminated in the Paris Agreement, a landmark moment of hope and optimism when nations put differences to one side for the common good. I pray with all my heart that COP28 will be another critical turning point towards genuine transformational action at a time when already, as scientists have been warning for so long, we are seeing alarming tipping points being reached. I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming, over climate change and biodiversity loss. But I was not alone. For instance, Sheikh Mohammed's dear father, Sheikh Zayed, was advocating for clean energy at a time even before the United Arab Emirates as such came into being. All these decades later, and despite all the attention, there is 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than there was back then, and almost 40% more methane. Some important progress has been made, but it worries me greatly that we remain so dreadfully far off track, as the Global Stocktake report demonstrates so graphically. The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change. Surely, real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victims. Repeated cyclones batter vulnerable island nations like Vanuatu and Dominica. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods, and East Africa is suffering a decades-long drought. This past summer, in common with Spain, Greece, the United States, and many other countries, Canada experienced its most severe wildfire season on record, with 18.5 million hectares of land burned, causing terrible loss of life and property, and of course, releasing enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that contribute to dangerous feedback loops to which climate scientists have been alerting us for decades. As I've tried to say on many occasions, unless we rapidly repair and restore nature's unique economy based on harmony and balance, which is our ultimate sustainer, our own economy and survivability will be imperiled. Records are now being broken so often that we are perhaps becoming immune to what they are really telling us. When we see the news that this last Northern Hemisphere summer, for instance, was the warmest global average temperature on record, we need to pause to process what this actually means. We are taking the natural world outside balanced norms and limits and into dangerous, uncharted territory. We are carrying out a vast, frightening experiment of changing every ecological condition all at once, at a pace that far outstrips nature's ability to cope. As we work towards a zero-carbon future, we must work equally towards being nature positive. With what we are witnessing, our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world? Dealing with this is a job for us all. Change will come by working together and making it easier to embrace decisions that will sustain our world, rather than carry on as though there are no limits or as though our actions have no consequences. As you gather, ladies and gentlemen, for these critical negotiations, the hope of the world rests on the decisions you must take. I can only encourage you to consider some practical questions which might inform the task ahead of you. Firstly, how can our multilateral organizations, which were established at a different time for different challenges, be strengthened for the crisis we face? How can we bring together our public, private, philanthropic, and NGO sectors ever more effectively so that they all play their part in delivering climate action, each complementing the unique strengths of the others? Public finance alone will never be sufficient, but with the private sector firmly at the table and a better, fairer international financial system, combined with the innovative use of risk reduction tools like first loss risk guarantees, we could mobilize the trillions of dollars we need, in the order of $4.5 to $5 trillion a year, to drive the transformation we need. Secondly, how can we ensure that finance flows to those developments most essential to a sustainable future and away from practices that make our world more dangerous across every industry in every part of the world? I have, for instance, been heartened by some of the steps taken by parts of the insurance sector, which plays such a vital role in incentivizing more sustainable approaches and providing an invaluable source of investment to reduce the risks we face. Thirdly, how can we accelerate innovation and the deployment of renewable energy, of clean technology and other green alternatives to move decisively towards investment in this vital transition across all industries? For instance, how can we increase investments in regenerative agriculture, which can be a nature-positive carbon sink? What incentives are necessary? And how can those which have a perverse impact be eliminated with all due speed? Fourthly, how can we bring together different solutions and initiatives to ensure coherent, long-term approaches across sectors, countries, and industries? For virtually every artificial source of greenhouse gas emissions, there are alternatives or mitigations which can be put in place. That is why it is encouraging to see industry transition plans being developed both nationally and globally, which will help each sector of our global economy onto practical pathways to a zero-carbon, nature-positive future. And, ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, how can we forge an ambitious new vision for the next 100 years? How can we draw on the extraordinary ingenuity of our societies, the ideas, knowledge, and energy of our young people, our artists, our engineers, our communicators, and importantly, our indigenous peoples, to imagine a sustainable future for people everywhere, a future that is in harmony with nature, not set against her. Ladies and gentlemen, in your hands is an unmissable opportunity to keep our common hope alive. I can only urge you to meet it with ambition, imagination, and a true sense of the emergency we face, and together with a commitment to the practical action upon which our shared future depends. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So if we act together to safeguard our precious planet, the welfare of all our people will surely follow. And we need to remember, too, that the indigenous worldview teaches us that we are all connected, not only as human beings, but with all living things and all that sustains life. As part of this grand and sacred system, harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
Thank you, Your Majesty. And now, please help me welcome to the stage the leader of Brazil and COP30 host nation, His Excellency Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, who is the President of the United Arab Emirates, Your Majesty, King Charles III, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Presidents and Heads of State. An African woman from Kenya, Wangari Maathai, who received the Nobel Peace Award, synthesized very well the dilemma of humanity and its relationship with nature. She said, the generation that destroys the environment is not the generation that will pay for the price. The IPCC has warned us that we only have till the end of this decade to avoid that the global temperature would go beyond 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial levels. 2023 is already the hottest year in the last 125,000 years. Humanity suffers with drought, floods, and heat waves that are more extreme and frequent. In the north of Brazil, the Amazon region suffers one of the most tragic droughts of its history. In the south, we are facing tempests and hurricanes that lead along a lot of destruction and death. Science and reality show us that this time we will have to pay for the price. Now, the planet is not waiting anymore to demand from the next generation. The planet is tired of climate agreements that were not fulfilled and goals to reduce neglected carbon emissions, and the financing to the poor punches never comes. Eloquent and empty speeches. We need concrete actions. How many world leaders, in fact, are committed to save the planet? Only last year, the world had spent more than $2 trillion in weapons, amounts that could be invested to fight hunger and to confront the climate change issue. How many tons of carbon was were emitted by missiles that cruise over the skies and fall over innocent civilians, mainly children that are hungry? The count that has to be paid for the climate change is not the same for all, and the first one to pay for the price is the poorest population. The 1% richest part of the planet emits the same volume of carbon than 66% of the population. Rural workers that have their plantations, subsistence plantations devastated by drought, cannot feed anymore their families. Dwellers in the peripheries of the big cities that lose a little bit what they have when the floods come and destroys everything. Furniture, homes, pets, and their sons. The injustice that penalizes the younger generation is only one of the faces of the inequalities that affect us. The world naturalized the disparities that are unacceptable in terms of income, gender, and race. I can't imagine to confront the climate change without fighting inequalities. Who are those that are in hunger have their existence imprisoned by the pain in the present and becomes incapable to think about the future, about tomorrow. To reduce socioeconomic vulnerability means to build resilience vis-a-vis the extreme events. It also means that we should have the conditions to redirect all the endeavors to fight global warming. In 2009, when I participated at the COP28 in Copenhagen, the architecture of the climate change convention was almost in collapse. The negotiations failed, and it was necessary a great effort to recover the trust and reach to the Paris Agreement in 2015. Coming back to the presidency in Brazil, I can see that today we are in a similar situation. The non-fulfillment of the commitments that were taken erodes the credibility of the regime. It is necessary to rescue the belief in multilateralism. It is unexplainable that the UN, although all the endeavors, it shows itself incapable to keep peace simply because some of its members profit from war. It is regrettable that the agreements from the Kyoto Protocol of 1997 or the Paris Agreements of 2015 are not being implemented. The rulers cannot exempt themselves from their responsibilities. No country will solve their problems alone. We are all obliged to act together beyond our borderlines. Brazil is willing to lead as a role model, and we adjusted our climate change goals, and they're the most ambitious ones that many developed countries have. We have reduced drastically the deforestation of the Amazon region, and we will have zero deforestation till 2030. We have formulated an ecological transformation plan to promote green industrialization, low carbon agriculture, and bioeconomy. We have forged a common vision with the Amazon countries, and we built bridges with other countries that detain tropical forests. The world is already convinced of the potential of the renewable sources of energy. Now is the time to face the debate about the slow motion pace of the decarbonization of the planet and to work towards an economy that will be less reliant on fossil fuel. We have to do it, and in a way that is urgent and fair. Let's work in a constructive way with all countries to pave the way between this COP28 and COP30 that we will host in the heart of the Amazon tropical forest. We do not have two planet Earths. We are a unique species called humanity. All of us aim to make the world capable to host with dignity the totality of their inhabitants, and not only a privileged minority. So I'd like to invite, as Pope Francis said, we are all brothers. We need to live in fraternity. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigada, President Lula. And now, please join me in welcoming the co-founder and environmental director of Brazil's Instituto Zage, an indigenous youth-led organization dedicated to reforestation and preservation of traditional knowledge. Miss Isabel Prestes da Fonseca.
Isabel, indigenous people of represent. I am Isabel Gagran, a guardian. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Isabel Gagran, a guardian with my family of Lacanono Choclan indigenous land. I am here today as an indigenous woman, a mother, a sister, a woman being who lives on this earth like you, with you. Every day, I witness all that is happening with much sadness, the devastation of our forests. Only 2% of our sacred biome survives. And the Zag tree, our millennia-old Araucaria ancestor, is on the verge of extinction. Our ancestors predicted this. They warned us about the future when the world would need our knowledge. Today we face environmental imbalances, climate catastrophes, drying rivers, crumbling mountains, and melting ice. The planet heats up due to human action. In southern Brazil, snow has practically disappeared due to the drastic reduction of our sacred tree, our Araucaria. In all places where our Araucaria is still present exclusively in the snow. We are running against time and have already planted thousands of trees. We are no longer just protecting the future, but acting in the now. In the name of the indigenous lives, the forest and biodiversity, join us in this fight. We are nature, trying to defend itself. This is a call to action. We can no longer delay. United, we will restore our earth, preserve our heritage, and rescue lost harmony. We at Instituto Zag, we are not just asking for support, we are asking for companionship. I invite everyone to join this mission, to become part of this journey for the regeneration of nature and life. Together, we will preserve not just a legacy, but the legacy of all humanity. Together, we will be the change. We have the solution for the climate changes problems. Olame Montamentate. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigada, Ms. Prestes da Fonseca. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly humbled to host you in the United Arab Emirates. May these coming days bring us together in collective action. If we take one thing away from today's ceremony, let it be that we have gathered here from around the world with the same goal: to unite, to act, and to deliver. And so we must. Welcome to the COP of Action. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Please remain seated until the heads of state have left the theater. All gold badges holders will be able to exit the theater from the rear of the theater. Kindly follow the ushers. And thank you for joining us today at the World Climate Action Summit at COP28.
هل عادي إني أتدرب مجانا؟
المادة ما هو شرط فلوس.
ما هي استغلال من الشركات للناس؟
خليه يستغلني بس يعلمني. الله يرحم والديك، خذ شغفك الحين، مو وقته، وتعال شوف سوق العمل ايش يبغى. شغفك ما حيوكلك عيش.
أنا أقدر أصمم لك أفضل مبنى أنت تقدر تبيعه. أنت روح بيعه، روح أدير الناس، خلني أصمم. أنا ما أبغى أسوي شيء ثاني. ليش تخليني أدير الناس؟ أنا ما عندي مهارات إدارية.
ما تبغى تصير مدير؟ خليك مكانك ولا تطلب لا زيادة ولا ترقية.
ليش؟
سقف الراتب حقك لا يمكن يتجاوز المستوى هذا.
أهلا، هذا فنجان من 8 وأنا عبد الرحمن أبو مالح. واحدة من أهم مسارات حياة الإنسان هي الوظيفة. تأخذ الوظيفة معظم حياة الإنسان، ومنها نجد رزقنا ونعيش، ومنها نساعد في بناء الأرض وإعمارها وتحسين الحياة. وهذه الحلقة مع مدير للموارد البشرية حاولت أجد إجابات على الأسئلة اللي تمر بحياة الشخص المهنية. كيف الواحد يختار تخصص من هنا البداية؟ بعدين كيف يبني خبرة وهو لا يزال طالب؟ كيف يقدر يكون علاقات رغم أن العلاقات صعب تكوينها قبل الوظيفة، وخصوصاً أن معظم الوظائف تتم من خلال المعارف؟ كيف تبني سيرة ذاتية وهي مهمة جداً؟ كيف الواحد يكون جاهز في المقابلة الشخصية اللي بتكون آخر نقطة لتحديد هل تتوظف أو لا؟ ولما تتوظف كيف تتعامل مع الزملاء؟ كيف تتعامل مع المدير؟ الترقيات والعلاوات، أسئلة كثيرة وأجوبة وافية وكافية من ضيفي نايف الفهيد، خبير في الموارد البشرية لمدة 25 سنة. أما الآن لنبدأ.
أنا مرة جبت في الشركة عندنا ركن كافي، كلفنا يمكن في الشهر 2000 ريال. نزل لي المدير العام قال لي تخبل جايب لك كوفي ب 2000 ريال، ما احنا مستفيدين منه الا 50. قلت له يا اخي رفاهيه الموظف، افهم يرحم والديك. قال اقول لك انتم كافيك اطلع برا. استغربت، قلت له كم عددكم انتم؟
بالصدق يعني متى تكون رفاهيه يعني الموظف؟ ولا
سؤال مهم ترى هذا، سؤال مهم ترى اليوم.
طيب وش جوابه؟
متى تكون ايش
رفاهيه الموظف؟ فعلا مهمه يعني، ولا هو دلع لما تكون الشركات
لما تشوف انعكاساتها على الانتاج؟ لان هي انت تكسب واحنا نكسب. لما تريحه وترفهه وتعزه وتعز عياله وتسوي له تامين صحي كويس، لا هذه كلها رفاهيه. والداريه صحيا ونفسيا وين بيروح؟ في الانتاج. حيعطيك افكار، حيبدع، حيشتغل. بكره تتصل عليه وقت ازمه يقول لك من عيوني 2 انا اجيك اداوم بدال 8 10 ساعات زي ما انتم مسوين فيهم الان. هذه تقاس رفاهيه المو بصحته وحجم الانتاجيه حقته.
خليه يداوم ساعتين.
ايش فيهم ضحكوا؟
لانه ما يداومون.
نتكلم طبعا على القطاع الصناعي الكبير والقطاع رياده الاعمال الكبيره. في ناس تقول له لو تتكلم عن شركته بكلمه ما يرضى، اللي عندهم الولاء العالي هذا زي ارامكو. تكلم مع موظف ارامكو قتله، ولا لأن عياله مأمنين وهو مأمن وجايبين له بيت ويعطونا ترانسبورتيشن خلاص.
بس هل هذا دلع ولا رفاهية
ليست من حق الموظف.
لا هذا من أبسط حقوقه. أي والله هذا من أبسط حقوق الموظف، لأن الرحلة المهنية طويلة. تخيل أنت تشتغل 40 سنة من حياتك في هذا المكان. يعني أنا في الوظيفة اللي اشتغلت فيها جلست 24 سنة. 24 سنة أنا في مكان واحد. بس يشهد الله أن حتى بعد ما تركتهم، قبل يومين كان عندي لقاء في روتانا سيدتي، جبت طاريهم ونزلتها في لينكد ان. السي او من امريكا راسل لي خطاب شكر، ان قلت ان احنا عندنا ولاء للشركه لانها كانت لحم كتافنا من خيرها، تزوجنا واحنا موجودين فيها، مرينا في ازمات وشالونا فيها، انا كاتش ار مرت علي منعطفات خطيره على موظفين جابوهم باخلاء طبي، صاروا عليهم حوادث هناك برا. يعني انت لما تجي تتكلم هالكلام قدام الموظف وتسوي اشاعه تصدر للموظفين، يقول لك انا واحده مثل هالشركات اقدر امن فيها مستقبلي ومستقبل عيالي.
هي كانت اول وظيفه لك؟
الثانيه.
ايش كانت اول واحده؟
شلمبرجير، رقوق بترول.
برضه موارد بشريه؟
ها ايه كانت معاناه.
شلون؟
كان اول اسايمنت اعطاني اياه مدير المدرسه، قال لي ابيك تطلع الربع الخالي. قلت شكلك شايف شهادتي غلط او شيء. قال لي لا، ابغاك تشوف كيف الموظف لما يجي يدق على الموارد البشريه تعرف وضعه كيف. يمينا بالله من يعني اصعب 4 أسابيع في حياتي ما انساها. اي والله، لاني صراحه كنت اشوف شيء، الموظف يدخل ابيض يطلع اسود. لان الزيت والجريز كله ينزل عليهم وينقطوا، لابسين اوفرول هنا، والبوكسر اللي للركبه في درجه حراره 55 60، وهو يطبخ من داخل. يعني الله يعزكم يوصل لمرحله ما يتعرق، خلاص نشف جسمه. فهذه رساله بعد ما صرت انا مدير موارد بشريه. كنت الموظف احيانا يرفع عليك التليفون الساعه 12 في الليل، تو اقول حق الاخت اصيل ما تقدر ما ترد عليه، ما تقدر، لان هذا هو الأصول الغالية الثمن يسمونها، ما تقدر تعوضها بثمن لا راح. فيعني دروس قاسية بس تعلمك كثير يعني.
وشلون توظفت أول وظيفة؟
الحين احنا نسجل. تمزح. لا
مسموح انك تقول اللي قلته؟
ايش ما فيها شيء.
طيب خلاص
لا فكرت ندردش يعني قاعد.
كلها دردش الحلقة.
ما تمنتجون يعني بعدين ولا بعدين حنسأل ولا؟
لا ما عليك، يعني هي زي ما هي. هذه مصيبة
أشوفه ساكت قلت يا أخي والله تصدق عجبني اللوكس كذا أحسن من بودكاستات كثيرة والله. يعني ويعدل في السؤال ويقول ايش رايك كذا. راحت سؤاله السالفة. سم.
طيب شلون توظفت أول وظيفة؟
في أول وظيفة والله قصتها تضحك. أنا كنت تقدمت على شركة بترولية. أنا ما كنت بروح.
اللي
شلمبرجير. ما كنت بروح ولا في راسي أصلا، لأن ما كان توجهي حقيقة، ويائس أصلا أن بتوظف فيها. دق علي واحد من عيال خالي قال لي أنا مقدم فيها ودقوا علي، تعال أنت. قلت له يا أخي ما اتصلوا علي. قال لي بس تعال ويانا. والله رحت يمكن في حدود 30 شخص.
ليش ما اتصلوا عليك؟ هل قدمت مكان
ما
قبله؟
قدمت أنا. تعرف إحنا قبل 20 سنة تمشي بالملف العلاقي وروح.
وسلم شركة.
أنا رحت حتى من الخجل كنت واقف في الأخير أناظر فيهم. أثاري السالفة اللي موجودين بكلهم بنقابلهم، وأنا على استحياء كنت واقف في الطابور. في الاختبار التحريري أنا تجاوزت من ضمن 30 من ضمن 10. ولد خالي معي هو اللي ناديني أنا، وكانوا ما يبون إلا شخص واحد. طبيعة العمل في شلمبرجير تحتاج قوة بدنية شوي. أخذنا على ورشة الموجودة في هذا، قال بس أبغى أوريكم إحنا طبيعة عملنا. جابنا عند بايب كذا يستخدمونه في الرق أب والرق داون. قال بس أبغى أشوف مين يقدر يحركه. طبعا أنا كنت ألعب في النادي والكورة وكذا، فطبيعتنا رياضيين يعني، فما حد قدر. كنا نضحك يعني، الشلة اللي موجودة كانوا يضحكون، ما أقدر أشيله شوية ثقيل. أنا جيت بس تعرف حساوي وياكل تمر كثير والله طلع معاي. واللي يسوي المقابلة أمريكي ما هو سعودي. إيه، فجات عينه علي، يعني كأنه خلاص شنص. هذه الفترة أنا كنت أشتغل عند واحد من عمامي عنده شركة أصباغ، توني متخرج وكذا، سعودي ويشتغل.
متخرج موارد بشرية تخصصك؟
إيه، إدارة أعمال. أنا
إدارة أعمال.
إيه. وكنت أشتغل عند عمي في محل أصباغ يبيع صبغ. كل اللي موجودين، عمي ترى كان يعطيني 700 ريال وشهر يعطيني 3 لا، بس أنا كنت أبي أتسلى يعني. برضو الأمريكي قال لي، كانت عندي لغة إنجليزية كويسة يعني وقتها، قال لي أول مرة أشوف سعودي يشتغل في محل أصباغ، أنتم ما تشتغلون هالشغلات. قلت عمي، وصراحة كنت أبغى أساعده، ومشروع الجديد كمان هذه خذها بعين الاعتبار، أن واحد يعني نازل لمستوى هو يشوف أن السعوديين ما يتوظفون. من بين كل 30 اختارني أنا. وأنا ما قدمت، بس سبحان الله هذه رسالة أن إحنا إذا الله كاتب لك رزق في مكان، حتى لو ما كنت مقدم وما كنت مستعد وما كنت متهيئ، بس رزقك موجود ومحفوظ.
لأنك لا يمكن تتهيئ المقابلة الوظيفية أنك تروح تشيل أثقال.
ما جاء على بالي أقول لك والله، ولا أنا مدعو. الضحك وين؟ أنا ولد خالي وإحنا طالعين أنا اللي موقع لحقته، هو اللي راجع يقول، أحسه يناظر فيني، يقول ليتني ما أخذتك،
كان ممكن أنا اللي راح.
إيش نسوي؟ فكانت يعني من التجارب اللي، وبعدين زي ما قلت لك وداني الرقوق عشان أسوي محاكاة.
أحس مرة مهمة.
إيه، وترى هذه من الاستراتيجيات اللي يستخدمونها المدراء في إن كيف ترفع الحس الإنساني عند الموظف، إنك تخليه يدخل في معاناة الموظف. وهذه جزء من تهيئة الموظف الجديد، سواء موارد بشرية ولا غيره. إن أنا يعني تأثرت نفسيا كثير باللي شفته، وزي اللي جاتني صدمة ترى، يعني رعب بأن في أحد اليوم يشتغل هالشغلات هذه اللي موجودين في الرقوق. هذا الإنسان لما يتصل يقول أنا أبغى ورقة تعريف بالراتب عشان بروح أقدم، بجي بس 12 ساعة وأطلع. في بعض الموظفين يقول لك لما تجي، الآن المعادلة بالنسبة لي اختلفت، أنت لا تجي، حنا نجيبها لك. أنت وين حتكون؟ البنك اللي أنت حتكون فيه إحنا نجيبها لك، لأن ما عنده إلا 12 ساعة، لازم يجي يخلص أموره ويرجع. صح. أو موعد عند أهله وموعد عند أولاده. فهذا الشيء أنا أسميه أنسنة الموارد البشرية، وهذا شيء أحيانا ما تلمسه، ما تلقاه موجود. وهذا في ال10 سنوات الأخيرة صار يؤخذ على الموارد البشرية أنهم قاسين، أنهم عنيدين، أنهم دائما يطبقون القانون بدون روح القانون. يعني التجارب والتهيئة الموظف الجديد لسوق العمل مرة مهمة.
الحين كم صار لك خبرة؟ 25 سنة
تقريبا. يعني أنا اشتغلت في الشركة الأخيرة 24 سنة، والشركة اللي قبلها سنة، فكملت 25 سنة وسلمت عليهم.
ممتاز. طيب إذا بناخذ تدرج شكل الموارد البشرية أو مفهوم العمل، يبدأ من ما قبل الجامعة، هو أنك تختار التخصص. وأحس هذه دائما مسألة يعني مؤرقة وصعب فهمها. يعني مثلا أتذكر يعني مثلا في 2 من أخواني الآن هم في الجامعة، بالصدق يعني قبل يقدمون يعني ما تدري وش تقترح عليهم، ما تدري وش تقول لهم أو تنصحهم حتى هل هذا التخصص صح ولا هذا التخصص خطأ. ودائما في سالفة اللي وش سوق العمل يبغى، حتى سوق العمل ما تدري والله وش يبغى. يعني بغض النظر عن المستقبل اللي احنا نتكلم عليه اليوم اللي هو الذكاء الصناعي وغيره، خلى على جنب الأشياء الحياة الطبيعية. عشان كلا يمكن تنبؤ ب ما هو التخصص المطلوب في سوق العمل. لو أخذنا السعودية مثلا مثال، تخيل في 2013 تدخل جامعة وتجي تبغى تدرس، وتقول مثلا تدرس سياحة مثلا، ولا تدرس تاريخ، ولا تدرس أفلام ولا طبخ. يعني مستحيل، يقول لك ما حد لن يقبلها أي عاقل إنك تدخل هذا التخصص، لأنه يقول لك مستحيل له سوق. والآن كل السوق يطلب هذه التخصصات. فكيف الواحد يختار تخصص الصدق؟ يعني كيف الواحد يسويها صدق؟
طيب شوف، أنت تطرقت إلى حقبة زمنية اللي في 2013 تقريبا، والفترة اللي ما بعدها. بس اليوم لو أنا جيت اليوم دخلت في الجامعة، إذا ما كنت مجبر على التخصص بسبب المعدل، فيما أحيانا أنت تكون خلاص انحديت على تخصص لأن معدلك ما ساعدك. اليوم في قدرات وفي تحصيلي كل ما ارتفعت كل ما دخلت التخصص اللي أنت تطمح له. المملكة اليوم قاعدة تتوجه إلى نقلة كبيرة في أكثر من جانب. زي ما نشوف احنا واضح قطاع الرياضة بدأ يعني يأخذ منحنى مرة ممتاز. الاستثمار والاقتصاد والمعمار، انت تشوف بدأت المباني، بدأت الطرق، بدأت التشجير، بدأت الزراعة. فهذا واحد، أول شيء أنت لازم تقيس على البلد وين متوجه. قبل يعني في 15 سنة اللي راحت كنا نبحث عن معلمين ومدرسين بسبب أن الكادر اللي كان موجود في البلد أغلبهم مش سعوديين، فتحول هذا القطاع الآن إلى تقريبا سعودي 100%.